If you live in California and keep a large cash balance in a high-yield savings account, I have some news for you. The rate you see is not the rate you keep. A 4% yield in a high-yield savings account and a 4% yield in Treasury bills may look identical on the surface. But after federal taxes, California taxes, and possibly the net investment income tax, they can produce very different results. For high-income Californians, Treasury bills may deliver almost 30% more after-tax income at the same 4% yield. So same yield, different tax treatment, and very different amount left in your pocket. Hello everyone, my name is Aaratee. I'm the founder of Aaratee Financial. I worked for more than 20 years at the intersection of finance and technology in Silicon Valley, including leadership positions at top tech companies and leading financial institutions. On this channel, I break down practical tax, investing, and wealth management topics for high-income Californians. One topic each week. Today, we're answering a simple but an important question. Should your cash sit in a high-yield savings account or should it sit in Treasury bills? We will cover what makes Treasury bills different from high-yield savings accounts, why California taxes changed the math, how the same 4% yield can turn into very different after-tax results, when T-bills make sense and when a high-yield savings account is the better choice. This is especially relevant if you're holding meaningful cash for a home purchase, taxes, business reserves, emergency savings, or a future investment opportunity. Here's a short version. A high-yield savings account pays interest that is generally taxable at the federal level and the California state level. A Treasury bill pays interest that is taxable federally but exempt from California state income tax. For Californians in a high state tax bracket, that exemption can be super valuable. So the question is not just what rate am I earning? The better question is, what do I actually keep after taxes? Let's start with high-yield savings accounts. A high-yield savings account is simple. You open an account at a bank, deposit cash, and start earning interest. The advantages are convenience, liquidity, and FDIC insurance. I personally used high-yield savings accounts for a long time. Back in 2005, I used to keep my cash in a popular high-yield savings account called ING Direct, because they paid much higher yield than my traditional checking or savings account. But over time, I realized one big issue. High-yield savings accounts, interest is fully taxable. Now compare that with Treasury bills, also known as T-bills. T-bills are short-term obligations of the US government. Instead of paying interest like a savings account, T-bills are typically bought at a discount and they mature at face value. For example, you might buy a T-bill for $9,700. When it matures, you receive $10,000. The difference of $300 is your interest. Let's do the math. Assume both a high-yield savings account and a Treasury bill offer the same yield. Let's say 4%. At first glance, it looks like a tie. But for high-income California household, the after-tax result can be very different. Say the household is in the top federal bracket, pays the 3.8% net investment income tax, and is also in California's top state income tax bracket. For a high savings account, that interest may be exposed to 37% federal tax, 3.8% NIIT, and 13.3% California state income tax. That adds up to a combined marginal rate of about 54.1%. So a 4% high-yield savings account may turn into an after-tax yield of about 1.84%. Now look at Treasury bills. The federal tax and potential NIIT still apply, but California state income tax does not. So the combined rate may be closer to 40.8% instead of 54.1%. That means a 4% Treasury bill may turn into an after-tax yield of about 2.37%. So same 4% yield. High-yield savings account after-tax yield is about 1.84%. Treasury bill after-tax yield is about 2.37%. That is roughly 29% more after-tax income from the Treasury bills. Now translate that into dollars. On $200,000 of cash, a 1.84 after-tax yield is about $3,680. A 2.37 after-tax yield is about $4,740. That is more than $1,000 of additional after-tax income on the same cash balance at the same yield. And that is the core point. It is not about the rate you earn, it is about the rate you keep. And this difference matters more as your income increases. If you are in a low or moderate tax bracket, Treasury bills may still be more tax efficient, but the difference may not be large enough to justify the additional complexity. But for high-income Californians, especially those already facing high federal taxes, California taxes, and the NIIT, the difference can be meaningful. This is why cash strategy is not just a banking decision. It is also a tax decision. A 0.5% difference in after-tax yield may not sound exciting, but on large balances, year after year, it adds up and impacts your wealth compounding. Another important difference is rate stability. High savings account rates are set by banks. Now, a bank can advertise a very attractive rate today and lower that rate when the interest rates fall. Now, Treasury bills work differerly. When you buy a Treasury bill, your rate is locked in for that bill's term, assuming you hold it to the maturity. So if you hold a 13-week T-bill, you know the return for that specific bill if you hold it until maturity. Now, that does not eliminate reinvestment risk. When your T-bill matures, the next available yield could be higher or lower. That is why Treasury bills work best when you can match the maturity to your expected cash need. Now, let's talk about safety. High savings accounts are generally FDIC insured up to applicable limits, commonly $250,000 per depositor, per bank, per ownership category. But if you're holding more than that, you may need to spread deposits across multiple banks or use cash sweep programs. Treasury bills are different. Treasury bills are direct obligations of the US government and are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. So for large cash balances, Treasury bills are simple, safer from a single bank concentration standpoint, and more tax efficient. A practical way to use Treasury bills is through a ladder. A ladder simply means you spread your cash across different maturities. So instead of putting all your cash into one 26-week Treasury bill, you might divide it across several maturities. 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 13 weeks, 26 weeks, and 52 weeks. That way, a portion of your cash matures regularly. When each T-bill matures, you have a choice. You can spend the cash if you need it, or you can roll it into a new T-bill. This helps balance three things: yield, liquidity, and predictability. For example, if you know you may need some cash in 1 month, some cash in 3 months, some in 6 months, you can structure the maturities around those needs. The goal is not to lock up all your cash by creating a rolling stream of maturities. You might be asking, why buy Treasury bills directly? Why not just use a money market fund or a Treasury ETF? Now, funds and ETFs can be convenient. They offer easy trading, simple reinvestment, and daily liquidity. For smaller balances or simpler needs, they may be perfectly reasonable. But Treasury bills do offer a few advantages. First, there is no fund level expense ratio when you buy T-bills directly. Second, the California tax treatment is usually cleaner. Direct Treasury bill interest is generally exempt from California income tax. With funds, you may need to review the fund's annual tax information letter to see how much of the income qualifies for state tax exemption. Some government money market funds may hold treasuries or other instruments which can affect state tax treatment. Third, if you hold a direct Treasury bill to maturity, you can know the maturity date and face value. With ETF or the money market fund, the market price or net asset value can fluctuate, even if that movement is small or very short duration funds. So while money market funds and Treasury ETFs can be convenient, direct Treasury bills can be cleaner, especially for larger balances and tax-sensitive investors. Also, to be clear, this is not a high savings accounts are bad video. High savings accounts absolutely still have a role. They are a better fit if you need immediate liquidity. For example, monthly bills, emergency funds, payroll, short-term business operating cash, or money you may need unexpectedly. They can also make sense when the balance is small and simplicity matters more than optimization. And if you're not in a high California tax bracket, the after-tax advantages of Treasury bills may be smaller. So the practical answer is not that Treasury bills are always better. The right answer is use the right vehicle for the right cash need. Immediate cash and your strategic cash are doing different jobs. They don't have to sit in the same place. Now here's a simple framework. For immediate emergency cash, a high savings account or a brokerage cash sweep may be the better fit. For cash needed within 1 to 4 weeks, you might use a high savings account, a money market fund, or a very short table ladder. For cash needed in 1 to 12 months, Treasury bills or a table ladder may be attractive. And for large cash balances above FDIC insurance limits, Treasury bills or a diversified custody structure may be worth considering. The point is, don't treat all cash the same. Your checking account cash, your business reserves, your tax reserves, your emergency savings, or cash for home purchase may each deserve a different approach. So the bottom line is, for high-income Californians, Treasury bills may offer a stronger after-tax cash strategy than high savings accounts. The yield may look similar, but the tax result can be very different. And this is why it is not just about what rate am I earning. The better question to ask is, what do I keep after taxes, fees, and liquidity needs? For immediate cash, a high savings account still makes sense. But for cash that can be invested for several weeks to several months, especially for large cash balances, direct Treasury bills or a T-bill ladder may offer higher after-tax yield, predictable maturity, direct US government backing, and no fund expense ratio. If you are a California founder, entrepreneur, or a high-income family holding a large cash balance, it may be worth reviewing if your cash strategy is working as efficiently as it could. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe for more videos on tax-efficient investing, cash management, and tax planning for Californians. And if you want help thinking through your own cash, tax, and investment strategy, you can learn more at Aaratee Financial website. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.